Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. On the bench right now we have got the brand new Quansheng TK11 quadband transceiver. Now this has got to be one of the internet's most hyped radios of 2025. Loads of people talking about this one, thanks in part to the slick social media advertising of the Taiko Kong, as it's called here, with the gorilla symbol. It's been appearing all over the place, this one has, and there's been a lot of hype building for the past few months before this one was released. So anyway, I got in touch with Quansheng and they agreed to send me through this review sample. So thank you very much guys for the support of the channel, it's always appreciated. So I was a big fan of the original Quansheng UV-K58 that came out quite some time ago. Cue this radio on the screen here. Remember this little one? Everybody's got one of these. They're all over the internet. They were cheap, affordable, and they've become so popular in part thanks to the modifiable firmware. And it all started with a few projects like Exuma, and there's been a few others since then as well, which have added all kinds of features to these little radios. They started off just as an FM transceiver, just a dual bander, and soon people realized the potential of the chip that was used inside this radio, and they started modifying it. There's modified firmware flashes on GitHub and other places, and basically you can add single sideband to these and fix the AM Airband Reception, which wasn't particularly brilliant in the original model, and they've added things like a spectrum scope to it. So this one that I've had here for the past 18 months or so is running the Exuma firmware, which I think is getting old now really, and I don't know if there's been any further updates on Exuma, but there has been some other firmware flashes since then. But I've been quite happy with its performance. I still take it out from time to time, and it's just one of those little transceivers you can throw in a bag and go out for the day somewhere and not worry about it too much because they're so inexpensive. Anyway, it's as though Quansheng were sort of looking at these kind of things and thinking to themselves, well, you know, that people have really taken to this little cheap affordable radio, and they've you know, wanted something a little bit better, maybe a little bit more market. So Quansheng, one of those companies that's been listening to people, and it's like they've taken some of the best features in this UV-K58, should I say, and they've been putting them into this TK11. So they've tried to replicate the success of the open source firmwares and everything, and building in some of the best features into this radio. So what's different about this TK11 from the original UV-K5? Well, quite a few things actually. The size, a little bit bigger than the previous model. One of the criticisms of this was that the speaker wasn't that great inside this model. Obviously with it being so small, it could only have quite a small speaker inside it, so the audio quality wasn't always the best when you turn the volume up. This one is a little bit bigger, and obviously it has a bit more output power as well, but the main selling point is the frequency ranges that this one covers. And straight out of the box, this one also can receive SSB audio and AM of course as well. So just looking at the specifications officially on AliExpress for this radio and on Quansheng's website, it does actually say that the TX frequency range is 10 and 11 meter band, the 6 meter band, the 2 meter band, and the 70 SEMS amateur radio band. But obviously it does cover a lot more frequencies between that. It can receive all the way through the HF spectrum, right the way up to 1.1 gigahertz, I think it is, or 1160 megahertz, as it says on the literature that I was just looking at just now. So basically what we're saying on the transmit bands officially is 25 megahertz through to 29.8, 50 to 54 megahertz, and that's on the 6 meter band, 136 to 174 megahertz, which includes the 2 meter amateur band PMR and all sorts of other frequencies in there, including the marine frequencies, and also 400 to 470 megahertz. Well, that's what it says, but from my testing I found it does transmit outside of those bands as well with reduced power. But obviously the big problem is when a radio covers such a large amount of frequencies, it's not going to have a clean output right the way across there, so you should only transmit really within the bands that it was designed for. So namely that would be the 11 meter, 10 meter amateur radio bands, 6 meter and 2 meters and 70 SEMS really. You know, it's not possible to get a clean output all the way across all these things for such a low price. Now pricing is one thing that I haven't really talked about in this, because obviously I received this factory sample, so I didn't pay the full retail price for it or anything. But I'm looking on AliExpress and they seem to be around $80, something like that, $80 to $100 depending on where you look. So, you know, it's a lot more expensive than the original UVK5, but that in part is due to the fact that it does a lot more things straight out of the box, and it's obviously got a bigger battery and all kinds of other features that are built in there, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So let's take a look inside the box and see what you get. Just before I open it, I just wanted to say it's quite a nice looking box that comes with this. They've got the marketing quite well with this. The packaging is really good. As you can see there, Quansheng TK11. I think they are making some other variants of this radio with different colours on the front, like camo and other things like that, but this is the first one. This is the review sample that was sent to me anyway, and it shows the output power as being just under 10 watts anyway, but obviously we'll test that on the power meter later on. But yeah, quite a nice looking box you get with this, with the Gorilla logo on there. It tells you some of the features on the box as well, which we'll go through shortly. So obviously I've taken the radio out there already, and you do get this antenna in the box as well. This is an antenna that I believe, if we look at it very carefully, it's called the Quansheng AX1. I don't know if you can see that on the camera there, but it's called an AX1 antenna. Now this is a tri-band antenna that comes with the radio. It's about 9 inches long approximately from the base up until this coil at the top of here, and I'm assuming this coil is something to do with giving it better performance possibly on the 6 meter band, because it's quite a tall order trying to get an antenna that works across 3 bands effectively. And I don't expect miracles on the 6 meter amateur radio band. We will give it a test a bit later on, but this antenna does seem to work okay on 2 and 70 and the usual frequencies. It's basically a dual bander with the bonus of being able to transmit on the 6 meter amateur radio bands on 50 megs. But when you look at the size of the antenna being 9 inches long, it's not going to work miracles, I wouldn't have thought anyway. But let's just pop the radio down a second over there. So you do get a comprehensive two-way radio manual in there. It's only in English at the moment. I believe you can possibly download other languages from Quansheng's website, but it does cover quite a lot of stuff. So they have tried to make a guide that's you know, easy enough to follow, goes through the different menus in this, because this radio has a very different menu structure to the previous Quansheng. And there's lots of information in there about how to set the frequency bands and everything else, and the DTMFs, scanning, etc, etc. So yeah, there's plenty of information there to go through. Best way to find out though is to play with it, which is what I've been doing really. You do get a interesting looking lanyard in the box. Quansheng Electronics since 1984. Is that how long they've been in business? I didn't even know that, to be honest with you, but yeah, that's quite a nice looking lanyard for a change from the usual strap that they give you. So yeah, a bit of self-promotion for Quansheng Electronics there as well. And there is something called a T-shaped antenna. Now this is supposed to be a HF antenna for reception on the HF frequencies, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, but it's got a 3.5mm jack, and this goes into the top of the radio underneath this little rubber flap between the antenna and the rotary volume control there as well. So that's going to be quite interesting to take a look at. Reminds me of one of those ferrite type antennas, I would say, something like that maybe. Maybe good for lower frequencies, but I can't see it being very good across the HF spectrum. But it's kind of like one of those compromise antennas, but it's good that they give you something in there to get started with. So we'll just pop that down there on the side. There's another layer underneath this. What else do we get? Obviously I've taken the antenna out there already. Some other bits of packaging. You do get a desktop charger included as well. So the radio just drops straight into there. So that's kind of like a nice little chunky charger. It's not USB-C on this. You can charge the radio through USB-C, but the base that comes with it is a normal jack plug connector, and Quansheng have popped a UK type power charger in the box, because obviously that's my region, UK. If you were to buy this in the US, they should put the appropriate one in, or the EU as well. So there you go, that is what you're getting there. So another way to charge up the radio anyway. Not really something that I'm probably going to use. I probably generally use the USB-C, but it's nice that it's included in the box, and that is basically all you get in the package. Now, although the radio can transmit on the 10 meter amateur radio band, there is no antenna actually supplied with it to do such a thing, so you're going to have to source your own antenna. So underneath this antenna socket here, it is the standard one. So you're looking for an SMA female antenna if you want to replace the stock antenna, or get something for the 10 meter or 11 meter CB band if that's where you want to use this as well. So it's kind of an interesting concept that this radio theoretically could replace a CB handheld as well. Now, one of the things I want to show you is the battery pack that comes with this Quansheng. It's a 3000 milliamp hour battery pack lithium cell, so that's going to keep the radio powered up for quite a long time. Rated energy is 22.2 watt hours, so it's capable of delivering, you know, the full 10 watts power output of this radio, so that's pretty cool. As you can see there, the radio shell is all metal on the inside as well, so it's quite well made. Quite a nice looking radio. Interesting enough, it shows the frequency on the back of here and the serial number of the radio and everything, and the FCC ID as just covering 136 to 174 and 400 to 470 megs. There's no mention of the other bands on this one, so I'm not quite sure why that is, but it is definitely a quad band radio in that it will transmit all the way through the frequencies that it does advertise anyway. So let's slide this battery pack back onto the radio. I think you just line it up there, it clicks into place like that. And one thing I forgot to mention when I unboxed earlier was this. There is actually a belt clip included in there. Now that was hiding at the side, I nearly missed it completely like an idiot, so I just didn't mention it at all, but it's a fairly decent belt clip. It goes straight onto the battery pack itself. I haven't tried putting it on yet. Let's see if we can just slide this one into situ. It's quite stiff actually, to be honest with you. There you go, straight in. And that is pretty grippy, to be honest with you. It does seem quite substantial. So, and it's got the logo on the back. Look, it's got the little gorilla symbol on the back of there as well. So you'll notice the battery itself is where you charge the radio. You can't charge it direct on there. There's no port on the side of this radio for charging. I don't see anything anywhere that you can charge this up with. You've got to do it through the battery packs themselves or in the desktop charger. So my preferred option is this USB-C on the rear of the radio, and if we pull the flap down there, hopefully you can see it, guys. There you go, USB-C on the back of there, and you'll be able to just pop the USB-C cable into there and it lights up to show it's charging. So pretty similar to some other radios, although I expected there might be a USB-C port on the side of the rig, but there isn't actually. But yeah, it's all, when you've got it all together with the belt clip and everything, it does feel really quite substantial. Even though it's a plastic belt clip, it's got metal reinforcement on the inside there, and it all seems to be a-okay, so that's really, really good. Moving on to this side of the radio, usual stuff on here. All there is on this side is a speaker mic jack socket, and this is also the jack socket for programming. And you'll be pleased to know that Quansheng have stuck with the good old faithful, the standard K-type connection. So if you've got any old programming cables for Baofengs or Quanshengs or any other sort of radios at all, it will work. There's nothing special about this. Any existing programming cable will do the trick there, and likewise any speaker mic accessories should also still work. So that's just behind there on the rubber flap. On the opposite side on this rig, you have got two PTT buttons for VFO-A and VFO-B, so you can press the top one to transmit on the top band and the bottom one to transmit on the bottom one. So fairly straightforward stuff really. And there are also two programmable keys here. Now I've rearranged these keys since I've been into the software to do different things. You can program them to do all kinds of stuff, which is really, really nice. And that brings me on to the top key that I've programmed up here, which you're going to be quite impressed with, because guess what? Quansheng have actually put a torch into this one again. So surprisingly, while some makers have ditched the torch of recent to fit in things like GPS modules, and there's no GPS on this radio by the way, they've still got a torch light in the top of this one. So for now, the torch lives on. Oh, and if you press it down again, look, it starts flashing as well. So yeah, maybe a useless little feature, maybe useful to some people, I don't know, but that's what you've got there. But anyway, two programmable keys, two PTT buttons. Just be careful to press the right one or you'll end up transmitting on a different frequency completely. That's the only thing I don't like about dual PTTs sometimes. I think you can possibly disable one of the others in the software or make them both work on the same frequency. I don't know, I'm going to have to look into that one. On the top, you've got the rotary volume control. There is no channel change on this one. It's a nice, positive, kind of chunky knob on this one with a nice blue marker on it. Yeah, that's your volume control and everything, so that all works a-okay. And that moves us on to the front of the radio. So, as you can see, similar size display to the original UV-K5 Quansheng, which may or may not be to your liking, because obviously this is a bigger radio, but they've kept the same kind of small display that was on the original Quansheng. So if we look at that, the display is actually no bigger on this new one, but they've gone, instead of amber, they've gone for the backlighting in blue. Now I quite like the blue, it works quite well, it's really readable, it's like a sort of light sort of blue, lighter than it looks like on the camera system right now, but as you can see there, I don't know about you, but I think that looks pretty good. I can see everything indoors without no bother at all. And also when you're outside in bright sunlight, with it being LCD and not a colour screen, the good news is that you can actually still see the display outdoors even in full sunlight, and that's been my biggest complaint with some of those colour screen radios, in that they do look a lot nicer than this, but when you're outdoors they're practically unusable. So anyway, as you can see, similar size display to the original one that we've got here, so no surprises there. Some people have been kind of like expressing their disappointment on the internet over this, and I've seen some other YouTubers saying the same thing, in that the screen could have been made a lot bigger and they could have added a bit more space, because there's a lot of things going on this screen. It's quite a busy layout really. But if you look in the top corner there, you can see the battery voltage displayed initially and the battery segments. You've got the two VFOs A and B, and there is a dedicated key to toggle between the two VFOs there, VFO A and B, which is better than the original Quansheng, but you had to go into an F key and then jump from A to B with that. But you'll see in a second it's been totally redesigned. So there you go, there's VFO B, VFO A. I've got a few things programmed in there, and you've got a V and M key for VFO and memory. And as you can see there, you've got VFO mode where you can type in a frequency directly. And that brings me on to another thing. These buttons here are a little bit smaller than the original Quansheng as well. They've made the keypad even smaller than the original UVK5, which, you know, to me is a little bit of a step backwards, but they've added more functions obviously, and I had to fit a little bit more into the space really, because there's so many things that this radio does straight out of the box. So if we look on here, you can see that there is some blue text on each of those keys, and it's got some functions on there. Now normally you would expect that in VFO mode, if I was to type in a frequency, it'd start typing on the display up there, but that's not so on this one. The primary function is the function in blue on this keypad. So there's various shortcuts to do different things on here, like for example power and other things like squelch levels and everything else. So it's whatever it says on the blue key is what it actually does initially. If you want to enter a frequency into this radio, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to press the hash key. That's like a frequency enter button. As you can see there, the display's got the dots on it now. We can now enter the frequency directly. So if I want to go to 145.200, as you can see there, I've just typed it in and it's gone straight to that frequency that's on there as well. And there are two signal meters on this radio. There's a VFO A and a VFO B, and you can see there, as I toggle between the two, it's showing something of a weak signal down there coming in now on the display, and the dB level as well next to it. So there's VFO A, it says A 105, and then B 125 down there, which is the other VFO with the PMR 01 in it there. So as you toggle between the two, it moves from left to right and shows independent signal meters on there. This radio doesn't have two receivers in it, but you can put it into dual receive, dual watch, where it'll flick between the two VFOs, and if one becomes active, it'll open up the squelch and you'll hear whatever's on there. But it doesn't actually receive two things simultaneously, so it's not a full duplex transceiver, if that makes sense. So that's the first thing. Like I say, frequency entry, press the hash key, type in the frequency where you want to go to, and you can do that directly onto there, which is really good. Likewise, if you wanted to change the power on this radio, you could go to shortcut key number 6 and just press that button there. So if I just press number 6 now, you notice underneath the first digit of the frequency up there it says H for high power. All we do then is press the number 6 and look, it's toggled to low. Press it again, it's gone to medium. Press it again, it's gone to high. So it's a nice easy way to get around the radio by using these shortcut keys in the blue legends under here. So always check on there first if there's something on there that's of use to you. So like I say, the default options on this, if you press any of these keys without pressing anything else, it'll do whatever the blue legend says on there. If you want to enter a frequency, you have to press the hash key. So that's a little bit different operation to the previous Quansheng, and I think it's quite good use of the keypad. Now, one thing we've not talked about yet is the band button on this radio, which is really useful in VFO mode. What Quansheng have done is they've divided up the HF, VHF and UHF spectrum into 14 chunks. And why this is good is because imagine you enter a frequency into there like I've done on the Airband 126775. That is in frequency spectrum F05, as it says in the top corner here. Now you'll notice if I press the band button, it says FO6 and it goes up on the spectrum a little bit further, FO7, FO8, etc. And it eventually goes back around all the way through to the HF frequencies down on 1 megahertz there and everything below it. Now you can see there if I press it each time, what it's doing is it's just cycling through. Now if I've been on those frequencies before and entered something in, like I did there with the airband frequency, it remembers the mode, it remembers the step, and it also remembers the frequency that I was last on. So instead of losing it when you move around on the VFO, when you press the band button, it remembers the last frequency entered and the mode and step and everything that was used on that band, which I think is really, really handy. A bit like a scanner would do, really. So they've basically given it the ability, like a band stacking register on some of these more expensive transceivers. So you can basically go all the way through and it'll remember what you typed in. So there I was on PMR 446 in the UK, 446.00625. It remembered the step, it remembered the mode of FM, it remembered the power setting as well. I think that's a cool little feature built into the VFO mode. And each one of these, there's a top one on VFO-A and a top one and another one on VFO-B, and it remembers those settings. So when you come back to it, so if I go right the way around and wrap around, there you see, look, I was messing about with the CB frequencies on it as well, and it's remembered the last thing that I put into there as well. So that's really, really clever. And you can even see that you can change the modulation type as well in each one of these things on the VFO. So say for example I wanted to, I don't know, if I go back around to here, on the CB frequency, it's on the USB now, maybe I want to make that FM instead, I can tap the modulation key and change the modulation type as well, and that is this one down here, key number 8. You know, we talked about the shortcuts earlier. If I press that now, look, I can change it between AM, LSB, USB, and when there's nothing on the display, that just means it's simply in FM mode. So that is the modulation key button there. So you can demodulate AM, USB, LSB on any frequency you want just by pressing that button, which I think is really, really cool idea as well. So that's another feature that's built into the radio. So I think by now you're getting the impression that this radio is pretty much menu driven, and that would be the case simply because there's so many features built in behind these shortcut keys and also in the menus that I'm about to show you here as well. As you can see, Quansheng have divided the radio operations into 10 main menus. So if we flick through these here, there's 10 main sections. Obviously General's one of them. And under that you've got the sub menus and the options inside each one as well. So it's fairly straightforward to find your way around once you know where everything is, like anything in life. Beeps, voice prompts, which I've turned off because it'd be annoying when I was doing the video. Things like the MDF is the name of the frequency. So for example, you could display the channel number instead of the name of a channel, or you could just display the frequency. All kinds of other stuff in there, whether you want the power on picture or not. Something called magic voice, which sounds pretty hilarious, which we'll test later on. All sorts of other things. Show reset time, I think that's to do with the menu hang times. Side key buttons, you know, where you can program what the function is. You can all do this through the CPS software, but you can do it on the fly straight through here as well. Press exit to go up a menu. Things like the channel, step, size, squelch, modulation type. Incidentally, this radio only transmits on FM, doesn't transmit on SSB or AM or anything like that yet. I say yet, but it could happen in the future firmware, you never know. Memory channel programming can all be done from this, setting your squelch levels, etc. One thing that's cool is it does keep the step size and everything on each VFO independently, which is really good. Work, all to do with Vox, signal bars on and off and things like that. They've thought of all kinds of things in here anyway. Dual receive, I've turned that one off for the purpose of this demo, but timeout timer. Usual kind of things that you find in there as well. VFO scan. This is really interesting. This is, you can use this radio as a sort of makeshift scanner. It actually scans better than most Chinese radios that I've tried in the past. As you'll notice, we talked about how they've divided up the frequency spectrum into these F ranges, F1, F2, F3, etc. You can set a start and end limit to scan, which I think is really good. For example, I programmed this F6 limit here to scan the 2 meter amateur radio band in the UK, so starting at 144 megahertz and ending at 146 megahertz. So you can literally use it as a proper scanner, and it actually works quite well. And likewise, you can set other segments, so you can scan individual frequencies, you know, bands, and you can even specify the mode like I was saying earlier, and it'll retain all that information. So if I go back up to 145, which I'm on now, 225, and hit the scan key, which is this star over here, you'll notice that the radio will scan between those predefined limits that are on there. using the steps that we defined as well earlier on. And that's really good because you can see there, look at the scan rate on that. It's really quite fast scanning around. It's no slouch, because some of these radios I've tested in the past have been really slow on scanning. But as you can see there with this one, it's actually scanning at quite a good rate of knots really. Look at that, it's going between 144 and 146 megahertz, which is a 2 meter amateur radio band. And as you can see, that's working really well. So that's one of the reasons why I like this so much. So going back into the menu, you can see what it's doing there. You can have a start and end for each segment. And I think that's a really good thing in there. It's not just a simple start and end range. You've got them for each area of the band, you know, for each segment of the band that you're in. So I think that's really well thought out kind of thing that Quansheng have done with this. So it makes it usable as a proper scanning radio. So even if you don't want to transmit, you could buy this as a sort of cheap scanner really as well. Maybe not the best thing to use as a scanner, but you've got 1,000 memories in there too. And it has got scan banks, which you can define using the CPS software. So for example, you can put up to 16 channels currently, I think, into a scan group, and then just scan around on the frequencies. So there's some really nice features in there. So just going on a little bit further, MR scan. This is where we've defined some in the CPS software, where you can define a list of frequencies that you can scan. Airband, marine, simplex. I've just done all these in the CPS software. So I think that's really good. All kinds of other stuff going on in here. DTMF, 5-tone, so things for business radio systems. The NOAA weather alert system, which is no use in the UK, but in America it's obviously used quite a lot. Host name. This is where you can see the version number of the radio and everything. In fact, if we go into here, there we are. We're on quite early firmware really, 5.00.03 right now. I'd expect Quansheng to be releasing some new firmware very soon, but obviously it's early days. This is a, you know, an early production radio that's been sent through to me, so obviously things are going to change, I reckon. And there's, you know, a few things in the firmware that are a little bit rough around the edges, but generally everything works as it should do. So that's a quick overview of the menu system that this uses. As you can see, it does take a little bit of getting used to compared to the original Quansheng. They've packed so much in here, it's crazy really. But yeah, let's have a look at the power levels on this radio as well, because I think it's quite interesting to do a power test as it claims to transmit across those 4 key bands. So let's get the power meter out. Let's do these power tests then. So we're on the Shawcom SW102 power meter into a dummy load to make sure that everything is A-OK. So we're going to key down on full power on 145.000 on the 2 meter amateur radio band, full power output. And as you can see there, we're getting about 7.23 watts coming through there, which is pretty respectable. Not quite the 10 watts that Quansheng quote, but still a fairly good amount of power. Let's knock it down to the mid power range now. See what we get. Now this is what I've been talking to people on while I've been doing the review. Mid power, just under 5 watts there, which is pretty much perfect, I'd say, for a handheld. That's all you need really. You don't need the highest power setting usually. So there you go, just under 5 watts. And let's go to low power now. Let's see what we get. We got 1.42 watts, so about 1.5 watts I'd say there. That's on the lowest power setting, which again is still pretty usable for a bit of QRP and everything. So that's pretty good balanced power output there. Okay, let's move to the 70 SEMS amateur radio band. 433 megahertz dead, and let's see what we get on there. So I'm going to key down on high power. We're actually seeing a little bit more power there, maybe about, I don't know, 7.89 watts, so 7.85-ish. Yeah, about nearly 8 watts of power going out there on full, which is a pretty decent amount of power really. Let's knock it down to mid. Let's go for the mid power setting. Yeah, just under 6 watts there, 5.85. Again, pretty decent. And finally, let's drop it down to the low frequency, sorry, the low power setting, 2.6 watts. So yeah, again, pretty well balanced all the way across there, no bother at all. So in your 2 main amateur radio bands, you're getting just under 8 watts of power there on high and about 5 on the mid power. Okay, I did wonder whether this radio would transmit on the 1.25 meter amateur radio band for those people in America who use those frequencies, and my radio just comes up TX disable, so that's not possible unfortunately. The radio currently doesn't transmit on those frequencies, which is kind of interesting. It can receive, but it can't transmit. Okay, so for the next power test, we've had to go old school with the meter because my other one doesn't cover that frequency range properly, and to get an accurate result, we've done it this way, to be fair. So we've got the old school Wells SP200 SWR and power meter here. It's all well calibrated, it's on the 20 watt range. So we're going to see what we get out on the 11 meter band. So I've set the radio to 27 megahertz dead on FM, of course, because it only transmits in the FM mode. And we're going to key down on full power and just see how much RF energy goes out through this antenna port. And that is actually quite surprising. Having a look on that scale there, on the 20 watt scale, we're getting 4 watts of RF there. So there's a solid 4 watts of RF energy going out there. So the radio does look pretty much usable as a CB handheld on those frequencies, given the right antenna system. So that's really, really good. So I'm quite impressed with that. Let's go up to 29 megahertz, which is the 10 meter amateur radio band. So you're likely to do FM operation above 29 megs, really. So let's key down on there. And again, I'm seeing 4 watts of solid RF energy on there as well, which is really, really good. So this radio actually does deliver where it promises. So that is really amazing. I'm quite impressed with that so far for a radio that covers so many frequencies, and it does it quite well. Obviously, it's not going to give you the full 10 watts down there, but 4 watts is enough to work as a portable handheld QRP, you know, with this kind of thing. So that's really, really good. Wouldn't it be great if it could transmit in sideband as well? Maybe in the future, Quansheng, hey? Right, let's nip up to the 6 meter amateur radio band. So I'm going to go to the 51 megahertz portion, which is where the FM sort of starts generally, over here anyway in Europe. Let's key down again on high power. And one more time, we're seeing 4 watts of RF again on the SWR meter. Yeah, a good solid 4 watts. So again, fully usable on the 6 meter band on FM there. So that looks really good. Incidentally, if you're wondering about spurious emissions and things like that, or harmonics from these type of radios, there's a guy on YouTube called, what's his name? It's Chris. Digital Analog Ham, and he's done a test on the actual emissions on this type of radio. So I haven't got the equipment to do that right now, but I suggest you go and have a look at his video. I'll try and put a link somewhere in the clip so you can go and have a look at his video afterwards of the emissions testing that he did, because he did a really good job on the TK11. But interestingly enough, like I say, 4 watts RF output going out there, which is really, really good. Now I'm curious to know whether this radio would actually transmit on the 4 meter amateur radio band, because over here in Europe we have the 4 meter band available, which is around 70 megahertz. So I'm just going to key in that frequency. Now officially it doesn't say that this radio actually does that, but I'm going to try and key down on 70 megs. Remember, I'm into a dummy load anyway, so we're not doing any harm anywhere. And as you can see, it does transmit, but there's probably like about 1/4 of a watt or something going out. It's hardly anything enough there to move the needle. So as you can see, it does transmit, but only just. So it's not really that usable, and I wouldn't use it on this frequency anyway, but it was just out of curiosity that a radio does transmit outside of the advertised bands, but it has been optimized obviously for 6 meters, 10 meters, 2 and 70. That's where it's mainly going to be used. But that's really interesting, don't you think? So I think altogether this is a great radio for those quad bands, and it could literally replace a CB handheld, a 10 meter transceiver, and the dual bander on VHF and UHF. So far so good. I am quite impressed with what it can do, you know, considering the size of the radio and everything that's packed into there. So yeah, quite interesting stuff. Right, so we've got the Quansheng up here on a windy day just outside of town, about a couple of miles out really, just so we can get some feel for how well the antenna works and speak to some of the locals up here and everything. So the first test I'm going to do today is the 2 meter amateur radio band. So we're going 145-200. Hopefully there isn't too much wind noise on the mic. We did try and find a non-windy location, but living along the east coast at this time of year as well, we've always got these winds. It's crazy. We should be a lot warmer than this, but the weather at the moment is just not cooperating, so we just need to crack on with the test. But anyway, here's the Quansheng TK11, as you know. Great radio. This is a stock AX1 antenna system, so I'm going to give my colleague M7HPT a bit of a shout, see if he's out there, and get some radio reports. Then we're going to transfer down to the 11 meter band afterwards and see if we can get CB frequencies going on this as well, because it's supposed to cover the CB band. So we're going to do a bit of a test really. We could try 11 meters or 10 meters, but Jason's already got an antenna set up for 11, so we're going to try that as well. So yeah. Right, M7HPT, this is G7 UFS calling. Have you got a copy, Jason?
M7HPT, yeah, got your siren, full signal.
Yeah, excellent, Jason. Yeah, I'm just outside of town. I'm on that short lane, just halfway between Bridlington and Bempton on the east coast. And yeah, you're coming in nice and clear to me. Full signal, 5 and 9 over 30. Great audio coming through the built-in speaker on this radio. So I know we were testing this the other day, but apart from the wind noise that's coming in up here, which is almost impossible to avoid, what do you think of the audio from this Quansheng TK11?
Yeah, it sounds good. Crystal clear, apart from the wind noise. Loud enough.
Yeah, I'm talking about 2 or 3 inches from the mic because I don't want the wind to get into it really, but yeah, it seems to be all okay. Like I said, I've been scanning around on the Airband. It receives Airband really well, and just this stock antenna. I've also tried the antenna on 6 meters, 70, all seems to be pretty good, but the one thing that I'm kind of wanting to test really today, if we can do, is the 11 meter CB band as well, because this radio is supposed to cover CB radio frequencies. So what we're going to do in a couple of minutes is, if it's okay with you, if we can nip down to 11 meters on the mid block, we could maybe just give it a try on this. I did measure the power output on the radio, and it's giving about 4 watts on this one from G7 UFS.
78PT. Yeah, we can give it a try. Don't forget, I'm only on a wire antenna inside my loft. So yeah, we'll meet on 27315, yeah?
Yeah, we can do. Just before we go down there, though, I don't know if Paul's listening in as well on us today. I'll just see if I can get a copy on Paul, see if he's here. He might follow us down there from his car. I know he's out mobile at the moment, but yeah, M0 DPH, I'll get it right in a minute. G7 UFS, are you there, Paul?
Yeah, I've got you say.
Yeah, how are you receiving this Quansheng then? I'm just on the stock antenna. Apart from wind noise, it's an absolutely crazy weekend again for the weather conditions. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was when I went out on bike, mate. Yeah, you're over S8. Lovely audio.
Yeah, and where were you this morning, Paul? Are you up at your usual perch, are you? Are you up at Grindale on the other side?
Yeah, I'm perched up at Grindale in my usual place.
You'll have been listening to the news service this morning, weren't you, on Sunday? So, yeah, that's good then. Yeah, are you able to get onto 11 metres by any chance?
Yep, all set up ready, mate.
Right, okay, so you'll have to give me a couple of minutes to unscrew this antenna and put this telescopic on. But I'm going to nip down to 27315 with Jason. That's what we've arranged to try with his wire antenna. Hopefully I'm going to get him. It's about 4 miles from here, I'd say, something like that in a straight line. So if you want, we'll QSY down there and give it a try then, yeah?
Yep, not a problem, mate, not a problem.
Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to try the telescopic antenna. I've got this Hirayasu 11 meter telescopic antenna here, so I'm just going to unscrew the stock antenna that comes with the rig. Obviously it comes with a radio that's an antenna that's tri-band, but if you want something better, so I've got it was SMA male, but I put a female adapter into the base of it so we can actually use this. There you go, I don't know if you can see that there on the camera. I'm going to screw this one in, and I'm hoping this works. I'm just going to put the packet somewhere so it doesn't blow away. Absolutely crazy weather at the moment. You wouldn't think it was halfway through May really, but this is a very long antenna for obviously 11 meter band. There you go. It's one of the telescopics. Really good antennas actually for general purpose receive and everything. So I'm just going to key the frequency in on here. 27.315. Yeah, I think I might need to just put a bit of squelch on this as well. See if I can get some squelch going on. It's a bit noisy. There we go. Right, Jason, have you got a copy on this one? 27.315, go ahead.
Yes, I've got you, Simon, but you're only about an S4 and about a radio 3. That's probably down to my antenna.
Yeah, I've got you lovely and clear there, Jason. You're coming in really well. Like I say, I'm just looking over back towards Brid, and about 4 miles in between us. I'll just turn the antenna around a bit, maybe that'll make a difference to you. But yeah, about 4 watts going out on this telescopic, Jason, yeah?
Yeah, Roger. Go through to Paul. What are you getting like, Paul? He's a bit weak to me.
Yeah, I've got you 20 over, Si. 20 over. S9 plus 20.
Oh, you're blowing my windows out on this one, Paul. Really loud audio as well. Yeah, you're coming in crystal clear to me. So these these TK11s work perfectly on 11 meters and probably 10 meters as well, I'd imagine. If we just sort of like shrunk the antenna down a little bit for 10 meters, it'd work great on the FM portion as there as well, yeah.
I don't think you'd have to change your antenna to go on to 10 meters.
No, all you do is collapse a couple of sections down, I think, maybe on there. We could possibly give it a try if you want in a few minutes, but yeah, it's lovely clear audio. It's just the same as up on 2 meters, to be fair, Paul. Okay, semi-sems test then. We'll give this one a try while the wind's still blowing like crazy up here. Don't know if you joined us, Paul. This is G7 UFS calling M0 DPH. Come on in.
M0 DPH.
Yeah, got you there, Paul. No problem at all. Same as on the 2 meter band. Nice clear modulation. Crystal clear up here. I tell you what, this weather is terrible there, Paul. I don't know about you or where you are, but I'm just looking over the back over here and it looks like it's going to rain. I'm sure there's some rain coming, you know.
Yeah, it's a bit grey and overcast, but I can't see too far. I can see right to the coast and a little bit out to sea, but not very far. Sea fret camp's coming a lot more now than what it was this morning. It was lovely and clear this morning when I was up at that viewpoint up near Danes Dyke. Yeah,
did you enjoy your bike ride this morning? Yeah, I'd have come with you, but it was a bit early for me, really. I'd only just got out of bed about just after 7 AM this morning, and I saw your post and everything, and I thought, you know, it's going to be terrible on the bike today with the winds and everything, but did you get a bit of shelter up there then, maybe at Danes Dyke?
Yeah, not particularly, no. I was only out for an hour and, what was it, an hour and 30 minutes, about an hour and a half, I think, something like that.
All right, well, at least it's another ride in the collection anyway for your Strava and that. So yeah, we'll have to do another one soon anyway, when it's a bit better weather and that, and get out with some radio gear and stuff and do some testing. Maybe a bit of QRP with this Quansheng. Do some CBDX up on there, or maybe on the 10 meter band as well, get some DXing in. But yeah, well, cheers for the checks today anyway, Paul. It's been good, but that was good in Driffield anyway. You know, getting John over there anyway, but he's not always that strong to me, and he was coming in quite nice this morning.
Yeah, it's lovely and strong to me, was that? Yeah, 15.73 kilometres, mate.
That'll do me then. Like I say, I was really impressed last night when I got Nathan down at Wivensea as well on this handheld with the telescopic. I just broke in on him, and he was really surprised that I'd made it in all the way down the coast, and that just on the CB frequencies. Well, there you go. You see, Quansheng TK11 working really versatile over all different bands, all different frequencies. I think we've pretty much tested it, works okay. The only one I couldn't do today was the 6 meter band. I just couldn't quite make it with Paul, so I didn't show it in the video, but what I'm going to do is give it another try and maybe you know, see what we can do with a different antenna maybe on the radio for the 6 meter frequencies. But yeah, there you go. Anyway, really good. Okay, so we're back home for the 6 meter test this time because I couldn't get anything on the stock antenna. So I've just plugged into my V2000 on the rooftop, and I'm going to speak to Paul, who's out in the countryside a few miles out. So let's see how we go with this one. So just got the adapter plugged into this radio. M0 DPH G7 UFS. Have you got me, Paul?
Mike 0 Delta Papa Hotel, yeah. Good and strong. Give me an S3, radio 5.
Yeah, superb, Paul. Yeah, well, you're coming through good to me anyway on 51.410 in the FM portion of 6 meters. Yeah, nice clear audio and everything, just as good as on the 2 meter band and 70 that we tested earlier on. But yeah, such a versatile little radio, Paul, for what they are, I suppose. You know, I mean, when you think they're relatively inexpensive, considering what you're getting in the package for the money. And yeah, for the most part, they seem to work quite well, don't they?
Yeah, to be fair, you've got an awful lot of radio in a very small handheld, and they're very impressive. The audio's good. You just can't fault them. You've got so much there in a small package for not a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a really good piece of kit, really. It's quite a well-built piece of equipment as well for what it costs, I suppose, at the end of the day. I mean, you know, the only thing is about the Chinese handhelds, obviously the filtering isn't as good as, say, Yaesu or some of the big name radios. You know, that's the main thing. And harmonics is a bit of an issue sometimes. You know, they tend to put out emissions where they shouldn't do on certain frequencies. But that's why you're supposed to stick to the main bands that they're designed for. I saw some harmonic tests on these radios, and they seem to be best up on 70 SEMS than anywhere else, really, Paul.
Yeah, well, you know, when you start transmitting out of band, you know, you're going to get them kind of things anyway. So, regardless to what radio you're on, when they're up and down, you start transmitting out of band other than where they're supposed to be, you're going to get harmonics at you no matter what. So, one thing I was going to ask you is, how's the screen in daylight?
Yeah, pretty much the same as the original Quansheng, Paul. It's the same type of screen. It's LCD screen. It's bright blue backlighting. whereas the Quansheng was amber, if you remember. But then they made another model, that Plus model, which also had the blue backlighting. And so, yeah, although you can't really see the light during the daytime, if you're out in full sunlight, you can still see the LCD display. So that's the one advantage it has. A lot of people were like disappointed that this radio didn't have a full colour display or a bigger display, you know, on it. But at the same time, it's readable outdoors. That's the main thing. And it doesn't use a lot of battery power either. So it does have some advantages, Paul. Back to you.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good. Because it's all right having the fancy colour screen, but if you can't see it when you're outside in the daylight, you're on a hiding to nothing to start with.
Yeah, well, that's the same as a lot of these colour display radios that I've been testing. They've been great, you know, in sort of, you know, the shade and everything. But as soon as you get into full sunlight, you just have no chance of seeing them at all. But, yeah. I did do some power measurements on the 4-metre band on this. Strictly speaking, it doesn't cover 4 metres. As you know, these radios can transmit out a band where they shouldn't do, really. But I did test it into a dummy load on the 4-metre band, and it only put out about 1/4 of a watt, so it's not very useful, really, on there anyway. I wouldn't use it for that, but it was just curiosity more than anything to see what it would do. But, yeah, on the whole, I think it's a reasonable package. It'd be interesting to compare it to the Radtel RT880 when I get around to that as well, and see how that compares. Don't know if they're using a similar sort of chipset in those radios to these, but yeah, pretty versatile stuff. But anyway, thanks for the radio report, Paul.
Yeah, no problem at all, mate. No problem at all. Always happy to help. Anytime you want to do testing for your YouTube and whatnot, it's not a problem at all. But yeah, I can't fault the audio, mate. I can't fault the audio. Like I say, it's only an S3, but the audio is just as clear on here as it is on 2 and 70 and everywhere else that we've tried.
Climb 220 km, 75 Scandinavian 88 Papa.
Good evening, Logan 539 Bravo, climbing flight level 150, heading 220 degrees. Logan 539 Bravo.
We are descending flight level 260, call you leaving Eurowings 51 Romeo.
Echoes, flight level 250, heading 215. Reset later, so see ya.
Eurowings 51 Romeo.
Good evening, Scandinavian 541, flight level 350 Rotom.
And listeners, this is GB2RS, Golf Bravo 2, Romeo Sierra, the news broadcasting service of the Radio Society of Great Britain. This broadcast comes to you from amateur radio station Golf 6 Alpha Sierra Kilo, located in the county of Somerset and transmitting on 7.127 MHz. Thank you for joining us. A very good morning to you all. It is Sunday the 25th of May 2025, and here is the GB2RS news broadcast prepared by the RSGB and intended for all radio amateurs and listeners. This bulletin is also available on the RSGB website at rsgb.org, where you will find links to groups and organisations that may be mentioned in the broadcast. And we begin, as always, with the headlines. Apply to become the RSGB's new CW champion. The Tonight at 8 series continues in June with Morse code. And could you be the RSGB's new STEM champion? As part of the RSGB's ongoing strategy to take amateur radio to new and diverse audiences, it is seeking to appoint a volunteer CW champion. Whilst the need for a CW test has been removed from the licensing requirements, there is still a strong interest in the mode. Recent communications and activity involving Morse have received high levels of interest, and the Society would like to do all it can to encourage and promote CW within the hobby. This new role will take the lead with activities including managing RSGB web content relating to Morse code and contributing to the GB2 CW broadcast. The volunteer will also be tasked with building a team of enthusiastic individuals who can support CW-related activities undertaken by the Society. This role is intended to help take Morse to new audiences, with an emphasis on learning and development for future the skills of RSGB members. Read the full role description as well as details of how to apply by going to rsgb.org/volunteers.
So I just wanted to do a quick video to show the capabilities of the HF antenna port on this radio. So obviously it comes supplied with this T-shaped antenna that we talked about earlier on that goes into the 3.5mm jack socket. Ideally, I'd have liked to have seen a different type of connector, so it'd be easier to connect up external antennas. But that's what they've given us on this one. So no SMA or BNC or anything for the HF antenna port. However, it comes in the box with this. It's like a medium wave ferrite type antenna, I think. So I've just tuned down to the medium wave broadcast band, and I've got BBC Radio 5 coming through. Not particularly clear, but you know, it's a little bit directional as you'd imagine. So it indicates it is one of those type of antennas. But you know, it's not very good for anything else on HF, really. You'd need to plug in a different sort of antenna, really. Probably have to do a separate video on that because we ain't got the time to show all of the features in the radio on there. But certainly AM broadcast band, if I just turn the volume.
Yes, Michelle Arteta in front of me here, Robbie, and I imagine a measure of relief to have come through what was a really
It's not too bad, really. I mean, it's okay. There is some internally generated noise that I'm hearing from the radio itself, I think. And as you tune around, it is a little bit choppy, so maybe there's some room in the firmware for improvements, but this is just in the AM mode. You can change the modulation type, obviously, with the key that I showed you earlier on. And you can switch between AM, USB, LSB, etc. But this is just broadcast band AM. And it's receiving on this little T-shaped bar antenna.
You're in a great position to, in a way, admire just his technique. He's doing it so regularly now.
Yeah, I'm not very power and emphasizing that I used to have, so he can add that. He has the physicality, he has the capability. He's all the defensive work that you ask him.
If it wasn't for that choppy sound, it'd sound pretty decent quality on the audio side of things, but it's an example of what it can do, and I'd imagine probably with some firmware updates, maybe improving the AGC a little bit as well, it might sound even better. But
it's been a tough little spell for Arsenal, but they showed it.
It's not too bad, really, I suppose. So I thought I'd do a quick demonstration of the TK11 spectrum scope capabilities, because I forgot to mention it earlier on. I'm just out on the bike and I've just remembered, now I've seen this come up on the display. As you can hear, there's a data carrier coming through on there, some packet data being transmitted on that frequency. I'm going to press key number 7 down on the Quansheng and it goes into spectrum analyzer mode, which is really cool. Now you'll notice straight away we've got some peaks on the display, and it's really easy to use. It's quite a nice little feature for looking at activity on the band scope. So basically you've got 4 variables on there. Keys number 1, 2, 3 and 4 set the parameters for each one, so I'll go through them. Key number 1 sets your centre frequency. If you press that, you can just type in the centre frequency you want to monitor. We don't want to touch that though, because we're already on the right frequency. Key number 2 sets the receiver threshold for the bar graph, basically. So you can change the dBm level up or down to make it more or less sensitive on the peaks, as you can see there as we do this. You can see the difference it's making. Key number 3 is the one that, actually, if I just press this down here, just press that off there. Right, key number 3 changes the spectrum scope bandwidth. At the moment it's set by default to 128 kilohertz, which isn't very much at all, but it can go right the way up to 6.4 megahertz. So all you do is press key number 3 and then you basically just increase it. So we're going to increase it to say 1.6 megahertz, and as you can see there, we can see a lot more of the band now and see if there's any other activity showing up on there. And you can see a couple of peaks on the display there. So we're seeing something higher up. But if we're not sure what that frequency is, we can now press exit on there, press key number 4, and we can now move the little marker to wherever the peak is, and we can then see what the actual peak frequency, the signal level is. So that's really good. So you can just move around. It shows you the frequency that's been received with the peak, with that little black dot on the screen. And the other marker that's running across is where the spectrum scope is currently analysing. So as you can see there's a few signals coming up at the end of the band. Hopefully you can see it on the camera. It's a bit difficult outside. But I just wanted to quickly demonstrate the power of this. Now this is a really good little analyzer. It's pretty decent spectrum scope that's built in the radio. And this has obviously been inspired by the custom firmware. So I think that's a really neat little feature that's built inside this radio. And I think that's worth remembering. So key number 7 to play with the spectrum scope on there. Right, just a quick demo of the dual watch feature on this. It can receive 2 things at once, this Quansheng. So both VFOs are active on here. One's got a memory channel PMR8 and the other's got an airband frequency in.
We got 4 scale here, mate.
And as you can hear, there's somebody on.
The breaker that you're talking to.
Mr. Rod on PMR8 there. I know Mr. Rod. Hello, Mr. Rod, if you're watching the video. I've got the 126775 airband frequency on the other VFO. And we can hear them both simultaneously. Maybe when the aircraft transmits, we might hear that in a second. But what is really cool on this radio is if you press key number 2...
Yeah, somebody's just come on here, mate.
I'll just turn it down a bit. Press key number 2. You've got like a balance control. and we can actually turn one VFO up or down, so you can have it so you can hear one or the other more. So there's a balance control in there as well, which is really good. So if I just turn down the other VFO, maybe make that one just 33% there, and then just press exit, I think. You can hear both coming in at the same time there, but we can adjust the volume level of both VFOs, which I think is a really nice little feature. A lot more expensive radios don't even have that feature in. I think my Yaesu FT5D has a similar feature, where you've got both VFOs active, but yeah, it's pretty cool. I quite like that idea. So that's what the balance key does out here. So you can move it up or down depending on which one you want to give priority to. So yeah, quite a nice little feature there. This is G7 UFS, Golf 7 Uniform Foxtrot Sierra, testing the 2 meter band with the Quansheng TK11. This is an audio check, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is into the remote SDR receiver, approximately half a mile away from this QTH. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Golf 7, Uniform Foxtrot Sierra, testing on 2 meters. G7 UFS, testing the 70 centimeter band on the Quansheng TK11. This is another audio check. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Audio check 1, 2. Golf 7 Uniform Foxtrot Sierra, testing on the 70 sems band using the remote SDR. Golf 7 Uniform Foxtrot Sierra, testing. This is Golf 7 Uniform Foxtrot Sierra, testing on the 6 meter amateur radio band. G7 UFS, testing the Quansheng TK11. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Audio check on the 6 meter band using the stock antenna. Only about 9 inches long. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is on the remote SDR, approximately half a mile away from this QTH. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Golf 7, Uniform Foxtrot Sierra. This is G7 UFS, testing the 10 meter band on the Quansheng TK11. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Audio check 1, 2, 3. Quansheng TK11 on the 10 meter band. Very impressive radio this is. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Golf 7 Uniform Foxtrot Sierra, testing. Here's a quick look at the Quansheng TK11 CPS software provided by Quansheng. Now, at the time of filming this video, I believe that version 1.94 is the most recent version available. I couldn't find this on Quansheng's website, but somebody rather helpfully put this on a Facebook group. So what I'll do is I'll leave a link in the description to the Facebook group if you want to join it. There's some help on there for the TK11 users. It's a really good site, and I believe it's been set up by M0FXB, so it's a good source of information really if you're struggling a bit. Now, the CPS is quite basic, and unfortunately we have to use this at the moment because there isn't any compatibility with chirp as far as I'm aware, but that should hopefully be coming in the next few weeks or months with a bit of luck. I'm certainly hoping so, but I don't fancy typing in loads of frequencies by hand again and again and again. But anyway, you've got to be a bit careful with this CPS because it does crash very frequently, and you've also got to run it as administrator in Windows, otherwise it tends to just bomb out and crash and you have to keep restarting it. Also, make sure you get the COM port selected first time correctly, otherwise that will also cause it to crash. So I'm just about to select COM10, which is my test unit here. I'm going to hit the read button, and as you can see it comes up reading param. Now it does look like it's not doing anything, then all of a sudden it goes across the screen really quickly, and if everything goes according to plan, there you go, it's all done. Now there is a message saying read success, but it disappears under the other window. So if I just close that out, all the frequencies appear that are programmed in the radio currently, but underneath here, if I go down to the bottom corner, I can see there's another one that says read success. So the focus of that window has been lost underneath the other one, which is kind of annoying. So it's left floating around underneath on the CPS, so just worth just closing that down once it's got to the end of the green bar. Anyway, as you can see, all the frequencies that I've got in the radio are stored in this long list. I have used what they call scan lists as well, but I've programmed various things in, some aircraft in there, some 2 meter 70 sems and 6 meter calling frequencies, and of course the 4 meter band as well, so I can listen on there too. So the way to edit these, if I was just to click on one of these, like this one, this repeater here, double click, and it brings up another window where you can edit all the parameters. Now, some of them aren't really applicable for what we're doing on the higher frequency bands, like for example the medium wave, shortwave bandwidth. That's only applicable if you're listening to HF stations, obviously. But bandwidth for wide or narrow deviation, the power. Scan list is kind of confusing, really. I've had to set these to all channels to get this to scan correctly. When you'll see the scan list in a minute, it'll make more sense. But just set them, instead of setting it for each scan list individually, you can have up to 32 scan lists in the memories, which are basically like memory banks, like on a scanner. Your best setting to scan all channels, and I'll explain why in a second, hopefully. You can set an individual squelch level, which is quite interesting. I've not seen that done before. Each channel can have its own level of squelch threshold, which is really interesting. And all kinds of other stuff in there, which are the usual things like the CT, CSS, etc. So if we sort of move on down to scan list over here, you can see that I've picked off a few of these. And I've got one for PMR 446 where I've entered all those 16 channels in. Now, some people have been telling me there is a limit on the amount of channels you can add to a scan list, which is kind of interesting. You can only add so many in and then it quits. So I think it's a limitation of the actual software. Some people said it's 16, others have said 22. I've managed to get more into the radio doing it directly on the handset, but yeah, it does seem a little bit rough around the edges at the moment, but you can add extra frequencies in. So if you want to add these channels, for example, you can keep on going and going and going, and it's supposed to keep on adding them in. But end of the day, for some reason, it doesn't seem to push them all across, so that's a bit of an anomaly at the moment. I don't know if it's down to the software or the radio firmware, but no doubt that will get resolved at some point anyway. But yeah, you can define up to 32 scan banks, basically, or scan lists. And so I've segregated them off into various things that I've been listening to, like, for example, the marine and the airband and everything. So that's kind of useful. And you can also define a priority channel as well. So don't forget, in the radio, I believe, if I go into there, you can see the firmware version of my radio there as well. If I go back to the channel list and scroll all the way down to the bottom of here, as it says, you've got 1,000 memories basically there, 999 on that one. So plenty of room to use. It's very basic though. You can't move frequencies up and down when you put them into a list. So you know, it's going to get messy pretty quickly, I would imagine. All the usual stuff in there. FM radio, where you can define FM broadcast radio frequencies. There's VFOs, which is where you can set those limits that I was telling you about earlier on. So for example, on these frequency bands, they're divided up into different segments, and you can see the VFO where it was last used and everything. For example, there with the airband, I've got 126775 in there, and 145200 on the 2 meter amateur radio band. So it remembers the last settings used, such as mid, power, high, squelch threshold, the mode that it was in as well. As you can see there, I was listening on 40 meters earlier today as well. So as you can see, it's got the basics in there. There isn't very much in this. This could be quite useful eventually. There's a firmware update utility built into the CPS as well, so we'll be keeping an eye on what Quansheng are doing with that as well. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is basically it. At the moment, you've only got what we see here. And you can define things like the scan keys and everything else, the side key, button presses and everything. So yeah, it's basic, it's functional, but if you make one false movement, it does tend to crash out as well. So it's just worth remembering that if it does crash, save frequently as you're going along editing, and remember to run the program as administrator. So hopefully that helps just a little bit anyway. So there you have it, guys, the Quansheng TK11. I'm sorry it's been such a long review, but at the end of the day, there's been so many features to highlight and so many good things to show you about this radio. I have really enjoyed my time with this little radio. It's extremely versatile. It packs a lot into a small space, really. And, you know, I'm impressed with the audio quality overall. The HF performance is better than I thought it would be when I was listening on the 40 meter band. The only thing I didn't really like about the radio overall was this antenna connector port at the top of here, which is basically this 3.5mm jack socket to plug the HF antenna into. Now, I think they could have done better than this, really. So if Quansheng are listening, next time you do a radio, please, please, please put an SMA connector on it, or a BNC or something. So what I had to do is cobble together an adapter. So I found this antenna that was in the box with my Whistler scanner, which is BNC, and then I've got a BNC to 3.5mm jack plug. So this is an adapter that I've had for some years, and that's what I was using to plug into the HF. Now it will go into the antenna port on the radio, but obviously it wobbles about everywhere and it comes out really easy, so I had to keep pushing it back in to make sure I got some reception, which is why I was holding the radio in a certain way when I was showing the 40 meter band test and everything. But yeah, so it would have been so much better if they'd done the same as the Radtel versions of these radios, where they've actually got the SMA port in them. There's a radio called the Radtel RT860, which has been out since the beginning of the year, and that has an SMA built in at the top of here, which I think would be much better choice really than this 3.5mm jack, which is kind of wobbly. But apart from that, the radio performance seems pretty good. It does everything that it says it does on the box in terms of you know, reception and transmission within the bands that it's specified, and it's a good all-round receiver really. And the price is falling. I noticed I was looking online, and I think AliExpress have got some of these around 50 UK pounds, including tax and everything. So I think that's about, what's that, about $65, something like that at the moment. So they're coming down in price all the time. But again, I'll leave some links in the description. And one more thing before we go, I did promise I would show you the magic voice function. I've been dying to try this out, but obviously I can't use it on amateur radio bands. So what I'm going to do is, very briefly, I'm going to switch this radio on to PMR 16. And I'm going to put another radio over here, which is this Baofeng. So hopefully I'll get this set up in a second. And I'm going to illustrate the voice changing capabilities in it. So it's a little silly thing that the engineers have put into this Quansheng. So yeah, it can change your voice and everything. I don't think it's probably legal really on amateur radio to use it or anything, but a bit of fun anyway, just for the PMR frequencies, just for a minute at the end of this video. As I say, leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to subscribe as well. But check this out, I'll leave you with this thought anyway, with the magic voice.
This is magic voice number 1. 54321 12345. Now this is magic voice number 2. 54321 12345.
Okay, this is magic voice number 3. 54321.
Now, this is magic voice number 3. This is ridiculous. Fancy putting this into a radio. Quansheng TK11. What were they thinking of? And finally, magic voice number 5. 12345. This is ridiculous. Honestly, who would have put this in a radio? I can't take this review seriously. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe. Bye bye.